Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to Pseudo Short 14 for Friday, July 21st, or as I like to refer to it, the return of the greatest podcaster ever, Josh Haddix. And I'm joined today by only Josh Kiser. How you doing?
I'm doing pretty well, and it's got to be weird for our listeners to hear that voice, not only because we haven't heard your voice in quite some time, but also because I don't know how many times you've actually done the opening.
Maybe at most twice, at least once, where I think I did a short with Hoagie.
Yeah.
But at least once, but maybe twice. But yeah, that is true. That is very true.
I know at least when it comes to me, you and I think it's the first time that I've had you open the show for us. So
that is very true. Which we haven't done many, just you and I. But when we have, you're the host. So.
Right. Well.
But anyway, the reason why I am hosting is this week we are talking about the comic book Spider-Man 2. It is a 5-part mini-series, I guess, if you want to call it. We are reviewing number 1 of 5. I don't think number 2 has come out yet, has it?
No, I believe number 1 literally just came out.
Did it just come out? Okay,
yeah,
okay.
Yeah, it's probably been, by the time this podcast release, I think it's going to be roughly 8-9 days.
Yeah, I was going to say a little over a week. Yep. Okay, right. Okay. Just to give a brief history, because as a God, what's the word I'm looking for? A little Jesus.
I don't know.
You're going to know the word as soon as as a little, not spoiler, but you and I are obviously not well versed in Marvel comics.
Correct.
So, God, this is going to bother me that I can't think of the word I'm looking for.
We're going to spend the entire short discussing, yes. Figuring out what phrase or word you're trying to come up with here to say that you're an amateur or not a expert.
Yes, there you go. Anyway, moving on. So, real quick, a brief little history. Spider-Man came out about 5 years ago, 2012. I believe the last issue was September of 2012, so it's been a little while.
Yeah, I was surprised by that.
Yeah, and we'll get into maybe why, but when that came out, it was also 5-parter. Real quick, just to give a real quick synopsis, it basically was our Peter Parker that we know, and he's on Earth 616 for what that's worth, which I never knew until I read about this.
I didn't either, and I always found it weird, like all these with all these multiverses, that what is the standard. Why isn't that considered Earth 1?
Why isn't that Earth 1 or Earth Prime or something? Yeah,
right,
yeah. I don't know why. And again, maybe there's a reason for that if we were more well versed in Marvel. But either way, so Peter Parker from 616, which is the Peter Parker we know, basically goes through some dimensional rift, ends up in the Ultimate Universe, where he runs into their Spider-Man, but it is not Peter Parker. It is a gentleman named Miles Morales, which I'm sure a lot of people have heard recently because of the storylines that have been going on. But you learn that world's Peter Parker died, so he took over. He actually has a lot more abilities or powers, however you want to look at it, than our Spider-Man, and they kind of get into it. He obviously ends up, telling him that he's a good guy. He believes him. Him and the heroes of the Ultimate Universe, which are, their Iron Man, their Nick Fury, basically end up helping him get back home, and it ends with Peter Parker being curious to the Miles Morales of his Earth, or Earth 616, since there was a counterpart of him on the Ultimate Universe. So he Googles, which I think they spell it like G-U-U, or however they spell it on there.
Right, yep.
He Googles Miles Morales, and whatever he sees, they don't show us, but whatever he sees, stuns him, shocks him, and that's basically how it ended 5 years ago. What do you think about all that, Kiser?
I mean, it's kind of interesting to me, is someone, I guess I was not, like you said, not well versed. I had no idea. I had heard, known that Miles Morales became Spider-Man. I knew he was a Spider-Man character. I had no idea that he was a different universe Spider-Man to begin with. I thought it was just all the same. But as far as the original Spider-Man go, it's interesting. I think in some ways it's kind of neat the idea that Peter Parker gets to go to a universe that he is basically perceived dead at, and sort of the emotional roller coaster that takes place where certain characters, for Aunt May, for instance, to see him, but then also for him to see like Gwen Stacy, for instance, like who was dead in his world, and he gets to see her alive.
Which he doesn't tell her that she was dead in our world. He like leaves that part out.
Right. So I think there's some neat aspects there, being able to kind of handle certain relationships like that. But one thing I don't know if it was mentioned at all, what is Uncle Ben's situation in that other universe? Has that been met?
I didn't actually read the comics themselves,
right.
So I don't know if they touch on it or not. I know the synopsis that I read just said Aunt May, Gwen Stacy, and he sees Mary Jane briefly, and she doesn't say anything to him.
And I
did
the same thing. I kind of read through it as well, and I didn't notice anything. But I feel like that would have been an interesting thing to throw in there as well. But I guess when you have five issues, it's short miniseries. You don't have a whole lot of time to do.
Yeah, very true, very true. Well, let's not spend too much time on that.
No, right.
But going from Spider-Man 5 years ago to the issue number 1 of Spider-Man 2 that we just read, a lot happened, and we're not going to get too much into it again because we're not really well versed in it. Plus, a lot happened. So, without spending too much time on it, Secret War is what happened. It was a story arc in Marvel Universe, and it spanned all of the universes. It was a very, very big thing that happened. Basically, it seems like it was their way to combine different universes into one. I don't know if maybe they thought things were getting too carried away.
I mean, it's like you see that a lot in, like you said, DC's done it in the past. You see it in some ways what Disney did with the Star Wars universe, with the extended universe. It's almost like things have gotten so vast and so out of control that they're like, you know what, guys, like what is considered, canon and what isn't these days. Like we just need to sort of reboot the entire franchise.
Which
simplify things.
Which does happen in comics a lot because, you do get off on a lot of tangents. And obviously certain different people are writing different storylines, so a lot of stuff can happen. But anyway, at the end of this Secret War arc, there became kind of a main universe, and it's called Marvel Prime. And to what Kiser was speaking about earlier.
And that's not to be confused with Optimus Prime, right? Like it's not.
No, this is not a Marvel and Transformers
not a crossover. Okay.
It's not going to be in Transformers 5. Or was that just Transformers 6?
Transformers 5 just happened.
Stop.
Yeah. Thanks for listening to our podcast, dude, where we reviewed that.
You're welcome. So anyway, when this Marvel Prime was created, a lot of different things happened, but all we're concerned about was the Miles Morales of the Ultimate Universe is now on this Marvel Prime with the Peter Parker that we know. So there are 2 Spider-Men, hence the topic of this podcast and the comic we read, Spider-Men 2.
It's kind of when I first was doing a little research with this, typing in the word Spider-Men into Google does not bode well because it keeps thinking like you want Spider-Man, and it's hard to find information on this without really typing in a bunch of keywords into Google.
Yeah, that is true because, and it almost seems weird to type Spider-Men.
It does. It even says it's even weird to say it.
Yeah, it really is.
and here we are with Spider-Man 2, though.
Yeah, not only is it weird, they did it twice. So again, 5 years later, same writer and not author, same writer and drawer. Illustrator. There you go. Good Lord.
Draw.
You can tell it's been a little while, dude.
I guess so, man. You're out of the game. You're a little rusty.
Seriously.
Thank God we put you on a pseudo short about Spider-Man 2 because we got to start you back in, ease you back into the process.
So you got to bring it in slow. So so same illustrator, same writer, penned this one, and it starts off, and I'm curious to see what you think about this, because, again, going into this, I actually read this before I kind of went back and did some research.
As did I, yeah.
So it starts off with a couple pages of like a scene of the two Spider-Men trying to track. They don't really say who it is, but they're trying to track somebody down real quick. They end up failing. The guy gets away, and it kind of shows Peter Parker kind of like remorseful, or kind of like, you shouldn't be doing this. You're too young. You're kind of holding me down. What did you think about that opening scene?
It was a little interesting because you're right. He did kind of give that effect that he was just not. It's almost like he wants Miles to not kind of follow the same footsteps that he did. Like he knows what it was like and doesn't want to put that burden on him.
Yeah, that's a good take. It ends, this kind of scene I'm talking about ends with him saying, Peter Parker saying, "You have no business being Spider-Man. None of this should have happened." So it's kind of like you wonder if that's going to play into effect, later on in an issue or something like that.
Right.
But anyway, so after that scene happens, the rest of the comic kind of goes into, it's split between Miles Morales is at school, chit chat with some friends, yada yada yada. Peter Parker's fighting a bad guy, somebody I've actually never heard of, Armadillo or something like that. I don't know.
Yeah, I wasn't familiar with that guy either.
Yeah. So basically, it kind of goes back and forth between Peter Parker doing his thing, Miles Morales doing his thing. In both of their stories that are going on simultaneously, there's like kind of a purple tornado that comes, and both of them go towards it. Peter Parker's already dressed up as Spider-Man. Miles Morales obviously leaves school, gets in his suit, goes towards this thing. They end up meeting at the warehouse where the first dimensional rift was that sent Peter Parker to Miles Morales' universe, and then they have some exchange in words.
Well, I will say, just before we get into that, I did enjoy the "do you realize where we're at?" and then Peter Parker's response, where he basically like summarizes all of Spider-Man 1 in one big breath, and he's like, yeah. And then he finished it with like, yeah, kind of.
Yeah, seriously, that was true. It's like if you haven't read this in 5 years,
yeah, it was like
a huge panel.
It was like a previously on, but for like an entire comic arc in like one giant run-on sentence.
Yeah, that is true. That is a good point, because that really did get me up to. Again, I read this before I did any research.
Yeah, that was my only knowledge of what's happening at all. Like, without having read or done any research.
That is a good point. So it does kind of almost do I think I felt like I kind of had an idea of what was going on.
A very rough idea. Sure.
Yeah, very rough. Right. Very rough. But anyway, so that, again, they're kind of talking about it. And the end of this part of the story has the Taskmaster, who's a villain, comes out of this dimensional rift. Again, so we don't know where it's to, or if it is even the same type of rift as it was before. Because again, Miles Morales' universe no longer exists, so it's not back to his universe. That's like,
right,
as far as we know, impossible.
That's not an option. Correct.
Yeah, so Taskmaster pops out and basically he's like, "I'm going to kill you both," and both Spider-Men seem scared. What's your take on that before I jump in?
That part surprised me a little bit. Was okay, Taskmaster. I'm fine with that. That's a cool villain to have in this story. Sure, that's not somebody that you see every day. With them, and it's not. They're not bringing Mysterio back, who was the previous main villain of Spider-Man. But it did seem like they were both very, very nervous, very unsure, very scared of what was happening, and that seemed a little surprising to me, I guess.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say, because, again, not that Taskmaster is like a pushover or anything, but he's not one of the more, crazy bad guys. We're like, oh my god!
It's not like, shit, that's Thanos right there.
Yes, that's exactly what I was about to say. Yeah, if that was the case, you'd be like, oh my god, yeah, like these two are going to need help. You know what I mean? Like this is
right, absolutely.
This is a real big dude. So yeah, that was interesting. And again, maybe that'll be explained going forward. But that was kind of interesting to me that they seem scared.
Maybe they're less scared. And I could be just reading in this or trying to defend the writing or something. But maybe they're less scared about Taskmaster and more scared or unsure of, like, why is this rift back that we are familiar with? Like, I thought all this was in the past, and that could be more the, oh crap, we know what happened last time. I lost my entire universe, and here we are, like, maybe that's like what's gonna are we gonna lose this universe now?
That is true. That could very well be it, and that would make a little bit more sense to me. So, so that was kind of the end of almost of the comic book, kind of ended, or of that issue, kind of ended the things that have been going on, except for they had one last page, and it's some older gentleman. I would almost say even he almost looks older than Peter Parker a little bit. Maybe it's just he looks rough, but he looks a little bit older whereas Miles Morales looks younger than Peter Parker because he is
correct.
Younger than Peter
Yeah,
Parker.
right. I'll give you that.
But it shows, an old, I don't want to say older gentleman because that might make it seem like he's real old. But anyway, it shows a gentleman.
Probably at least into he looks like he could be in his late 30s.
Yes.
Perhaps 40s. Yeah.
Yes, there you go. So basically the last page is this guy, and I don't know if it's his friend, nanny, whatever it is, basically says there's trouble in New York, which is where all the Peter Parker stuff's happening, and Miles Morales. And she calls him Mr. Morales. So we're assuming that this is the Morales of Peter Parker's universe, or Earth 616 before it was combined. And he seems to have knowledge of what's going on because she says the Taskmaster situation. So that's kind of how it leaves it. He seems a little like shocked that it's already happening, but he knows, it's almost like he knows of it, and it ends with him saying he's going to New York. So that's where it left us. What do you think about that last page there, guys?
It's an interesting, because I think this is the page this is your hook. I mean, right here, this is the page that I think if this page doesn't exist, you read this first comic and you say, well, okay, I mean, that was fine, but nothing really crazy happened. I guess Taskmaster is going to be this villain. But this, to me, this is the intriguing page. And like you said, there's a woman there, and she calls him Mr. Morales. First of all, does not say Miles, so maybe he's not Miles Morales, but
he could be Miles' dad,
right? So something like that. He is an older, like you said, he's a little bit older. But what's interesting to me is you read that a couple of times, and the first time going through it, I don't think much of it, but now a couple more times through, you look at it and you think. She says, I have it open too while I'm sitting here, so this way, bear with me. But she says, there's trouble in New York, and he says, already, meaning he expected trouble in New York, right?
Yep.
And then she says, the Taskmaster situation. So, she knows, she calls it situation, not like, oh, Taskmaster's there. So, again, it seems like something she's familiar with, and he responds, already. Again, it seems like he knew and expected this. Maybe just it's sooner than he expected it, right?
Yes.
And then she says, I'm sorry, Mr. Morales. You told me to tell you. So again, this looks like something that he has informed her, hey, keep an eye out on a situation. Eventually, this Taskmaster situation is going to come about, right? That's sort of what you get from that conversation. And then he replies, I promised myself so many years ago, but damn it, looks like I'm going back to New York. Back to New York. Not looks like I'm going to New York. Back to New York. So what I'm wondering, because like you said, they show his face then in that final reveal, and it's scarred up all over. You almost wonder, is there some time traveling kind of thing?
That's what I was just about to say. Yep.
Is this actually Miles Morales, and is this future Miles Morales that we're dealing with here, and are we dealing with some sort of time traveling thing? Which, I don't, correct me if I'm wrong, but that seems out of the norm for Marvel.
Yes, I agree. I could see it being something where Miles Morales, after Spider-Man went to Miles Morales' Earth, maybe it was something where he came here, but then there was like the whole merging thing. Who knows? But
okay, yeah.
It's funny how you brought up the time travel thing, because I feel like they want you to think, oh, he's been in New York, he's just going back there. But it's like more of a play on words than that. You know what I mean? Like, again, the Taskmaster thing, like, he knows that that's going to happen because he was there the first time it happened.
Correct. That's sort of the impression I get. Like, it is one of those, and maybe it's not. Maybe it is just because of the dimension. There's something in the rift, and he has lived 2 lives or something like that. I don't know how to exactly put it into words, but that's sort of it intrigues me to see where it goes. That panel, those 2 panels right there are what hooked me into this comic.
Yes, very true, very true. And the good thing about this comic is it's 5 issues long, so I think things are going to move fairly fast. I don't think they're going to spend whole issues on basically nothing.
Right.
I think we're going to get a lot of information very quickly. So overall, what was your thought reading Spider-Man 2?
Initially, a lot. I will say, going in having no idea what I was expecting here. I heard it was going to be a new, anticipated kind of comic. I never read the first one, so I didn't know where it went in the past. Did not expect it to go the way it did. I guess I just thought it was going to be those two. Well, again, I didn't even realize they were on different universes, so that's already working against me. But I kind of thought it was just going to be, you know what, we're going to put Miles Morales and Peter Parker together in a couple comics and have them team up against, Green Goblin or something. Just a generic tag team combo, and you get to see the two personalities in a comic together. And that's what I expected. I got something completely different, and I'm sure for the people who have read the original Spider-Man comic, you were expecting probably a little closer to what you got here. But like I said, if it weren't for that last page, I probably wouldn't really care. If it was literally just them teaming up against somebody, I probably wouldn't want to know how it continues and concludes. But now I'm very curious to see, is this a time-traveling thing? Is this a universe paradox? Whatever the case may be. And it's got me. I'm a little excited for it. I would say overall it wasn't a bad read. It was an easy read. It's a short comic for the most part. And I thought it was well illustrated too, which that might sound weird, but I do sometimes if I don't buy in or don't enjoy the illustrations, I really can't get into the comic much.
Oh, I'm the same way. And by the way, it's not well illustrated; it's well drawn. Okay, so just make sure you get that right. But I agree with you. I think that last page made it very interesting, and I will definitely be looking forward to the next 4 issues coming out and kind of seeing how the story wraps up, see what happens. I'm going to leave you with one question. Do you think, if that is Miles Morales that we saw, an older version of him, whatever, do you think he's good or bad?
It's interesting because I read some of the show notes that you put in there, and I saw that you had posted that, and it had never occurred to me that either the last one or the current one, whatever, was bad. So I would say no, because that didn't come off there. But the fact that you posed that question, now I'm unsure. He very well could be. Do you have a theory on why you think he might be bad? Or
no, I just not really. It's just kind of one of those. You wonder if they try to give you 2 different sides of the spectrum, and then it'll pose this question to the young Miles Morales of, is that going to be me? Like, is there a way, can I avoid that from happening to myself? Right. You know what I mean? Something like that. One of those types of stories. You know what I mean? So it was just more out of curiosity than anything.
It's possible. You brought up the point earlier, and we didn't really go any further into it, but when we discussed Peter Parker at the beginning basically saying this was kind of his fault, he didn't want Miles to live this life, that kind of thing. So you wonder if maybe this Miles that's all scarred up holds Peter Parker responsible for maybe his life
for something that happened.
For something happened. Maybe somebody close to him, that Barbara Rodriguez girl that they mentioned in here, maybe she gets killed.
That's true. That's true.
Because other than showing him just as being a high school kid, like, they focused on her a little bit. So like maybe that becomes a close love interest for him.
That is true.
And him being Spider-Man, causes her death, like a Gwen Stacy,
Yes.
He's like, you know what, Peter, it's your fault. I'm even in this position. This never would happen without you. So then they're holding Peter Parker responsible, and maybe that's, maybe this is a bad Miles Morales, and it's because of these, something that happened to them earlier on.
That is a good point. And for what it's worth, Peter Parker Googled him and did see whatever he saw. So I mean, he knows something about Miles Morales.
That's true.
So
I forgot about that.
We'll find out. Again, I'm sure a lot of these questions, or all of these questions, unless it's like the TV show Lost, will be answered in the end. So
or
we have
perhaps
that to
we'll
look
have to
forward
wait 5 years for Spider-Man 3. You never
That
know.
is true. That is very true. So well, anyway, I think that's going to wrap it up here. This is a short, so we want to try to keep it short, if you will. So as far as myself, I don't know what the schedule is looking like with the new baby. So I don't know if I'll be back next week for the long version. Maybe I can again kind of get my bearings about me by just joining on the shorts for a little while and kind of see how that goes. But is there anything you want to throw in here at the end, Kiser?
No, I'll kind of just close this out here. I just say, if Spider-Man, if you like Miles Morales, you like Peter Parker, give Spider-Man 2 a listen. And regardless whether you're back or not in full force next week, you can always expect to hear me and just Kyle Hoagland as we will do whatever our next long episode is, and I don't have it in front of me, so I don't want to be misquoted. Just stay tuned and listen to that. From the shores of Lake Erie, I am Josh Kiser, and he is Josh Haddix. And we will see you guys next time.
Have a good Friday.